Hello and welcome to the latest episode of the Brass Junkies. I am your host, Andrew Hitz, and I am joined by euphonium virtuoso. That actually is a thing. Lance LaDuke. How are you doing, Lance?
I'm feeling very virtuosic today. I don't know what it is. I woke up today and just sort of felt, virtuosic.
Virtuosic or virtuostic?
Well, I started out as virtuosic, and then I took a shower, and now it's virtuosic.
For anyone who does not know what I'm referencing, you should go back and listen to the Carol Jansch episode where you can hear me wrestle with English. So, well, actually, most of them, but that one in particular, I wrestle with English. So,
Humdinger.
Yeah, it was pretty good. So you two were giggling quite a bit as I ended up doing as well. So, all right. So today for episode 44 of the Brass Junkies, we are joined by one of our favorite horn players and one of our favorite humans who we have had the opportunity to collaborate with a number of times when we were with Boston Brass. And he is still, unless he's been fired in the 3 weeks since we recorded this, he is still in the Amani Winds, and that is horn player Jeff Scott. This was such a cool conversation.
It was really fascinating. I feel like we went in different directions with him, which was cool. And to have someone who is a brass player who makes his living playing in a wind quintet, I thought was kind of a cool profile that we haven't hit on yet.
Yeah, and he's I didn't realize that a third of his income today comes from writing, composing, arranging, like that's and he's really incredible at it. I mean, I'm not surprised once I thought about it for a second. I wasn't surprised at all. I just didn't realize that the percentage was that high because I think he makes a real good living as a horn player because he can do everything. So and has played on Broadway and toured with Luther Vandross and Barbra Streisand, and I mean, just like it's his career is.
He collaborated with us.
He did. He actually shared the stage once with Andrew Hitz and Lance LaDuke.
That's like the pinnacle,
right? Yeah,
sure,
exactly. So, I mean that would be at the top of my bio if I were him. Yeah. So. Let's tell the people, first of all, the number one way that you can help support the podcast is by subscribing through iTunes or through your favorite podcast app. It's so cool when we upload an episode and then we immediately see downloads happening. We know that there's a subscription there. Also, if you could leave a rating and a really quick review on iTunes, that's the best way to help other people to find the podcast. And we've received a lot of people sharing episodes over social media and have heard a lot of people say, oh, my friend told me about your podcast and that's how I found you. Thank you so much to not only to those of you who are listening to the podcast, but then who are recommending it to other people because you find value in it. That really means a lot. So, and then the other way you can help is that there are more ongoing costs in terms of web hosting and the actual podcast fees and production and all that stuff than you would think. That goes on top of the many hours a week that we got to put into this whole thing. And there's a very small way, if you'd like, that you can help us with that. So, Lance, can you tell the beautiful people about Patreon?
Beautiful people, can I talk to you for a minute? I want to thank you, first of all, for listening, for sharing, for commenting,
and for being beautiful.
Subscribing, for being beautiful, frankly. But if you want to help us in a tangible way, a financial way, we want to make that happen. So the way you can do that is to go to patreon.com, Patreon.
This is the weirdest one so far.
Super creepy.
Hi.
And if you subscribe, I'll quit talking like this. So you can subscribe at as little of an amount as $1 per episode. And then each time an episode launches, so in other words, 26 times a year, your account will be debited for $1 or $3 or $5 or however much you want to contribute. You can start or stop anytime you want. You can increase. You can freeze the amount per month or per year. And it's just a way for you to help us financially. There are incentives at different levels, so you can get some free downloads and stuff like that. And then additionally, starting this fall of 2016.
Holy crap! How old are you?
Yeah, exactly. I remember. Anyway, starting in fall of 2016, hopefully by the time you've hearing this episode, we're going to start putting up some behind-the-scenes content for our Patreon fans, the folks who are helping keep the lights on and keeping the motors running. Who's in the hopper in terms of the guests we're looking at booking. We'll offer ways for you to suggest some questions to those guests. How we go about getting episodes recorded and then edited and processed and put into the hopper. And just sort of an idea of what is going on behind the scenes at Pedal Note Media and with the Brass Junkies podcast. So if you want to experience that stuff, then sign up at Patreon. If you just want to help us financially, go ahead to Patreon. And actually, if you just want to keep listening and telling your friends and subscribing, that is, we really, really, really appreciate that. And if your finances are such that you can contribute for a while and then you have to stop for whatever reason, then, pay your bills, do what you've got to do. But if you've got some extra shekels laying around that you want to throw our way, it certainly makes things a lot easier for us. So thanks to you who have subscribed, and thanks to you who are listening. Patreon.com, The Brass Junkies.
If you're a real fan, you're going to default on your cell phone bill, and you're going to help support our podcast.
If you loved us, you wouldn't eat.
Oh, goodness. All right. So, without further ado...
Will you say anything about Mike Parker and Parker mouthpieces? He's like a big deal. Like, Parker mouthpieces are I think they're made out of metal. I don't know all the details, but I think they're metal.
Actually, my different metals. My rim is titanium, and my cup is gold plated. So, a big thank you to Parker Mouthpieces for providing our hosting and providing metal for all of us to buzz into. Parker Mouthpieces offers fine, customizable component mouthpieces made of metal for horn, trombone, euphonium, and tuba, also made of metal, including the Andrew Hitz Artist Model Tuba Mouthpiece, Heyo, and the Lance LaDuke Model Euphonium Mouthpiece. Find out more at parkermouthpieces.com or follow them on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. And you can use the offer code METAL for 0% off. So, it's a limited time. It's a limited time opportunity. So,
buy one, get a second at regular price.
Yeah, absolutely. We didn't. That's how tight we are with Parker Mouthpieces. We're not even clearing these promos with him. We're just telling him that he's running them. So, all right. And without further ado, we will get to our interview with Jeff Scott. And today we are joined. What was that sound? That was kind of funny. It'll probably be cut out by the producer, but as I was about to announce our guest, there was this. It sounded like someone was removing a manhole cover, but everyone's indoors. So
are you speaking in code?
No. Yes, maybe. I don't know. It's too early. So we are wasting the time of. We are joined this morning by one of the most famous horn players in the world, Jeff Scott of Amani Winds. How are you, Jeff?
I'm being famous. I'm sorry. I have to think about that.
He's the most famous brass player in a wind quintet.
Yeah, that is true. It's a little weird. Jeff actually showed up with his lawyer, and before each question, his lawyer is whispering in his ears, which I know you're supposed to be innocent until proven guilty in this country, but it's a little weird that you showed up with a lawyer, man. It's like, it's not a deposition. Oh, goodness. So, the problem with Jeff is he's never happy and he's never laughing. He's never smiling. He's just he's always a real downer. So.
Well, I usually spend my life on the road with 4 very, very strong women. So I have to pick my times, pick my moments.
See, Andrew and I, when we were with Boston Brass, we were just around 3 very strong women. So that made it a very
Oh, baby.
Actually, Jeff's not that strong.
Oh.
Wow. But we recently just changed personnel.
That's right.
Tell us about
that. Miriam, she decided she wanted to live in France, and we added a new clarinet player, Mark Dover, fantastic guy, and I put emphasis on guy because now I've got a partner in crime, so it's now only 3 against 2.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm breaking them in. I'm grooming them.
Still not a fair fight.
But it's still not fair. It's not on a. But I got a fighting chance now.
And it is funny that the horn in a
think
woodwind
so?
quintet is always the outlier anyway. You know, it's like four woodwinds and then the brass, and yeah, it was kind of funny.
Yeah, and it's actually pronounced horn.
Are you commenting on the horn's ability to play to play more than one note at a time while also simultaneously not playing any note at all?
It's a skill.
I can do that on the tuba. That's a skill because the partials are like an octave and a half apart. It's basically impossible.
Oh!
It's basically impossible to miss notes on a tuba, and I do it. So yeah, I still do it.
We should start a band, man.
That's.
We tried that.
Yeah. That would be kind of. I'd do this trio right here. Actually, that'd be fun.
Oh yeah, that's true.
Lance would be the only one hitting the notes.
Yeah. And all that
ukulele.
Yeah, I was gonna say, and all he wants to do nowadays is like play ukulele and tell quote jokes. So yeah, that's the
right.
That's the point of his career that he's at. Sorry, quote
eating food. So.
Sorry, quote career. Oh man, this one we're 3 minutes and 35 seconds into this one, and it's already fully off the rails. This is good. Lance, ask us a serious, insightful, and timely question of our guest.
Jeffrey, how are you today?
I'm fine. I'm on coffee cup number 2, as I told you. So, yeah, I'm wide awake. I'm ready to go. Ask me something. Ask me.
All right, are you ready? So, how busy is Monty Wins right now? How many days on the road are you guys?
We are about to embark on a 3-weeker. We start out, well, I should say first we have a new residency at the University of Chicago, taking over for Pacifica Quartet, which is like, whoa, pinch me.
Nice.
And the first leg of that starts this Monday. We do a week at a time every time we go out there. I think it's 3 or 4 visits throughout the year. But that'll be the first week of 3 basically on the road. We'll go to Iowa, and I want to say there's a little bit of West Coast in there somewhere. So I'd say as of Monday, we'll be quite busy. Yeah.
How many residencies like that do you have set up in any given year?
Usually just the one. This year, there are a couple kind of overlapping. We've had one at the Mannes School of Music, which is now part of the New School in New York City. We've had that one for 2 years. And as it's sort of overlapping into this one a little bit. But, yeah, we've been fortunate, I could say, for a few years to have consistent residencies. Before Mannes, we had the Hart School of Music, and it's just it's nice to have I have a trumpet player friend of mine who used to say it's nice to have a place to go when you don't have a place to go.
And so in the let's say a given week of a residency, what all do you guys do?
Activities tend to be based around getting involved with the students. So in this particular case, the school emphasizes the student composers and the faculty composers. And so we've commissioned one of the faculty composers there, and we're going to be sight reading, and performing music written specifically for us by the student composers over the next couple of visits. And I think, when you talk about woodwind quintet literature, you can talk about that for about 5 minutes, and the conversation is over.
As a tuba player, I know nothing about that at all.
And there's really nothing to talk about. I mean, I'm being a little facetious, but we don't have the Mozarts and the Brahms and the Haydns and the Bruckners and all that stuff. So it's our duty, if we're going to have a career, to help shape the future of music for the genre. So yeah, we're helping these young folks develop their musical skills and chops and so on, and it's like a win-win.
So you're not a big Rika fan?
Dude, Rika, he's my right hand man. I mean,
Well, let's back up a second because that's a very interesting thread, and let's pursue it. So Imani Wentz has been around how long?
19 years.
Wow. And so when you started out, what kind of rep were you playing?
Ironically, we started out with stuff like Rika, Candini, all the real basic wind quintets like the Hindemith and the Nielsen and things like that, purely because we knew, one, that we had to know that repertoire. You have to, if you're going to be a working quintet, that's almost like the proving ground, first of all, to play that repertoire. But also because that's how you really build your sound, play basic repertoire. Just like I know in brass quintet, play the basic repertoire, you play those Bach chorales, you get a group sound happening, and then you sort of venture off. So it was important for us to do that stuff. And we did it for I'd say a good 3 years starting in. But all the time we knew we were going to venture off because Valerie, our flute player, and I were bringing in new pieces from the very beginning. It was
You had written.
Started bringing our own stuff.
Where was this?
In the old Manus School of Music building on 85th Street. Valerie had just graduated from there, so she still had access to the building in 1997. And, rehearsal space in New York City is, if you got the money,
Right.
So it was real fortunate to have that space. And that was ground zero. That was it.
So Manus is doing some really interesting things right now. They've sort of reinvented in the last few years. And what has that process been like for you to witness that? I mean, I think that the sort of music students that are going through that program now are getting a very, very kind of different experience than when you went through. And I think it's pretty cool what they're up to. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, I think that music schools, conservatories are getting much hipper to what the needs are for a well-rounded musician in a general sense. I mean, when you and I were graduating, you got your lessons and your history courses, your theory classes, and you graduated knowing, the basic repertoire and excerpts so that you would be armed to go out and audition and win a job, hopefully. Where I think there's just so much to what's needed to survive in the event that you don't get that orchestral job. One of the skills is entrepreneurship and being able to, if not empower yourself as a self entity, somebody, a business within yourself. If not that, then how to build an organization, build a quintet or trio or quartet from scratch, all the business aspects of that. And so entrepreneurship has become sort of key to all that. There are a whole team now in conservatories completely dedicated to entrepreneurialism. I mean, it's just a fact that you need to have it. And I know the Manhattan School of Music, Manus, they're all doing that. And Imani Wentz has been a big part of that. In terms of going and giving seminars, talking about how we started, how we continue to grow as a business, because it truly is a business. How do you connect with management? How you connect with marketing people, publicists? Because it's so much more than learning the excerpts.
Right.
That's really nothing.
That's the beginning. It's the minimum that you need. It's what gets you.
Yeah.
Just like learning all that standard woodwind quintet rep that you were talking about in terms of specific to your instrumentation. It's the barrier for entry, right? Is that you need to be able to play really well. And then what? There's so many people that graduate every year. How about just take New York City alone? How many people graduate every year from undergrad, grad, doctorate with that just play their tails off? And that's one city in one country in the world at a time when somebody who's incredible in Romania, and if it's really that good of a video, that all three of us are going to see it pop up on our Facebook feeds like within 2 days. So yeah, it's astounding. So if I were a young let's say a flute player, I don't know why, but and I wanted to start a woodwind quintet, a professional woodwind quintet. And I said, I want to do what I want to do what Amani Wins does. What would be your recommendation? What would be your initial piece of advice to that student?
Well, I'd say think twice, first of all. No, really, because competition is fierce.
Yeah.
Out there with chamber ensembles, it's fierce. It's and just to go back a little bit, when you're talking about the people that are graduating, in the hundreds now in a big city like this or any big city around the country, yeah, everybody's good. That's just a given. That's the bare minimum. Yeah, everybody comes out and they can kill on their instrument. You have to be armed with so much more, and a lot of it has to do with knowledge and just a knowledge in how to handle business, because it's like I said, it's a business, and so much more of it now is it's about how you market yourself, how you get visibility. How you just make so you find your niche and really sort of hone in on making and perpetuating that out there so that people really know right away from the beginning what they're getting. Because the other thing is that people will click on your video or your website, and if they don't know what's going on within the first 30, 45 seconds, they're moving on. That's the way with social media. That's just the way it is now.
Yep.
So knowing how to market all that and how to say what it is that you're offering, what makes you different. That's what's being taught nowadays in the hipper institutions.
Yeah.
And I think the first thing I would say to somebody is have an idea, have a mission. It's not just about having a group, but why? Why have a group? Why? What do you want to say basically that, because we're all playing the same doggone music. What are you saying differently?
Watch your language.
Why your group do it and not hear this other group do it?
Yes.
What's different?
The list of people that can play the horn as well as Jeff Scott can is not very long in the world. It's not. The list of people who can play the horn 90%. Well, I know that's an opinion. Sure, blah blah blah. No, that's a fact. The list of people in the world that can play the horn 90% as well as Jeff Scott is obviously longer. The list of people who can play the horn 80% as well as Jeff Scott is even longer than that, 70%, etc. And you can play the horn 70% as well as Jeff Scott. And if you have a kicking idea and you're good at building a website and at finding your niche and at marketing and branding and all that stuff, you're not going to there's no chance that you can kill it on all those fronts. And then it's like, yeah, but this Jeff Scott guy has a much better low register than you do. So we're not going to, you're not going to be employed. And the whole school model, old school model, right, is all designed to get you as good as Jeff Scott, which is really important to try, but yeah, it's, man, if you can be 70% as good with all that other stuff. Now, if you can be as good as Jeff Scott and be good at all that other stuff, that's when you're so famous that you can monetize your time, like by being on something like this podcast.
Well, thanks for giving me an excuse for not practicing this morning.
Yeah, oh, you're very welcome. You're going to have a hard time going to Fairway after this, man. You're just going to be mobbed by people once this airs, because you're the guy, you're that horn guy on the Brass Junkies. I know you.
Oh, man. But it is true. I mean, really digging in, taking time to really think about what it is you want to say. One of the most important conversations our group had, we scuffled around for about 4 years in the beginning, and we won a competition hosted by this organization called Concert Artists Guild. And basically what they do is they manage you in a sense, and they give you a home base to go out and hone your skills. They send you out on long residencies where you're doing concerts and children's shows and all kinds of things. But basically, you get 2 years with them to just figure it out what the heck it is you're doing. One of the best conversations we had with the director there, Richard Weiner, back in the beginning was, think about your mission. What is it that you guys want to say? And I can be really frank, in the beginning, the group was just, we were all African American and Latino, and we were thinking, well, that's our thing. We want to show people that Black folks can do that. Well, all right, so we want a big competition. Now what do you want to say? People aren't just going to show up to just watch that Black group, Woo, So you really have to dig deep and say something that's going to change the way people are going to hear and their expectations of what they're going to hear, because they're basically going to hear that Nielsen again. They're going to hear that Hindemith, and they might hear a few new pieces out of you. But why is it that they need to pay attention to what it is you're doing? And we found that. It took a while, but we found that. And I guess just going back on your original question, if I had to tell a young flute player or any musician coming out that wanted to start a group, I'd say the first thing you want to do is think about your mission, what it is you want to say.
So how did that mission then inform your repertoire choices and your collaborations and your partnerships? What fell out once you made that decision? It seems like it was a coalescence of that idea. Then what fell out of that? What happened then?
Well, it solidified the fact that Valerie and I were going to do a whole lot of writing, because we wanted to have an original voice. We wanted to have a voice that hadn't been a part of the regular chamber music canon, and that was music from a Black perspective. And specifically, Valerie was really writing a lot of spirituals, or arranging a lot of spirituals. I was writing a lot of Latin music and a lot of music influenced by African and Southern Latin culture.
So you've already got my attention with that. Now, it had to be, and you two are both fantastic writers, but you've already got my attention. And guess what? I love Nielsen. I love Nielsen 5 makes me want to start slamming furniture around. It gets me so excited, It's like, I love his music, but you've got my attention. Now you got to do it as well as you guys do, but you've got my attention.
Right. Because in a program, we want to be able to play the Nielsen and the Hindemith or the Villa-Lobos or whatever those standard works are. We want to play them at the absolute top level that people can hear them with our own interpretation, of course. But then you got to hit them with something that speaks from your personal heart and what your vision of where music should go. And then we're playing all this original music that Valerie and I are writing, or arrangements of musics that haven't even been introduced into this chamber music setting. I mean, up until about 20 years ago, no one was really playing Piazzolla in a chamber music setting. It just wasn't being done. Granted, the music's been around for 50 years, but American audiences just didn't even know what this was, And so just the idea of introducing that into the canon and then playing it with your own take on it. And now everybody's doing this stuff. I mean, it's very commonplace to hear that stuff. But 20 years ago, not so much. And that's the kind of stuff that we were building our presence on, our repertoire, and our mission was to introduce all of that stuff into the canon.
You just recently swapped out players, and so how has that, if at all, affected that mission?
Wow. Well, it's yet to be seen just how much that's going to influence us, because Mark Dover is his name. He's only been with us since January. Right away, we knew it was going to be a new window, a new avenue. The fellow can play. I'm telling you, he's like the Wynton Marsalis of clarinet. Mm-hmm. He can play the most beautiful Brahms quintet you ever want to hear, and then wail on his clarinet like Woody Herman. I mean, it's just he can blow over any changes, anything, and it's just the ability to go literally on a flip of a dime between the two styles has sort of given us sort of this weapon in the ensemble, you know. And I can also see that, you know, and I'm kind of calling my group out and myself a little bit, you know, it sort of energized us a little bit, you know. I mean, not that we were sleeping on the job, but I could tell everybody's like turned it up another 15-20% in terms of the energy and what we're bringing to all rehearsals and concerts. This young fella just came in and lit it up, you know, and he's got this hunger. So it remains to be seen. He also writes. So we'll be bringing in some stuff literally like next week. I think he's bringing in some stuff for the first time. And so we're going to get to see what it is that he's going to bring to the table. Have a third voice will be exciting also.
Well, you know that anytime there's how long had the personnel been constant before this change?
19 years.
Yeah,
well,
right. So this is
18,
basically the same group.
100.
And now that can be the end of it when somebody leaves. And so what was that? Can you unpack that process? Like how far in advance did you have noticed that she was going to leave, and how did you find this guy, and what was that like?
Yeah. I think that the biggest thing was that we noticed about 2 years before our clarinetist Miriam Adam left. We could tell that there was something that was drawing on her sensibilities musically, life-wise, in terms of the clock ticking. She wanted to start a family. She had some different musical ideas that she wanted to express, and she had met somebody in France and really wanted to make that part of her life happen. And we could see that it was real strong. It was a strong desire in her. And as much as we tried to make that happen naturally in the ensemble, it was just too difficult because we're a New York-based ensemble. We kind of do things kind of the old school way, where we pull out our date books and we try to find dates that work, and usually it's very sort of patchwork because we all try to hold on to as much freelance stuff as we can, and so the flexibility is real important. It's hard for us to just say we're only going to rehearse, this week here and then run the same program for the year. That's just, we've never worked that way. So it was a tough pill to swallow because, man, we just had this great energy. There was just this natural, and you guys know this, it's like you play together for a period of time and you don't even have to say things. You don't have to rehearse certain things. I never had to do like a tuning thing with certain I just knew what to do. So that was a tough thing to give up, but personal growth is important. And we could tell, and everybody could tell that it was just time. And so Miriam left. And so it was actually a quick turnaround, because it's difficult when you have a working ensemble and you're booked a year or two in advance for certain jobs and you're making personnel changes. There are certain presenting organizations that don't want to know that you're having personnel changes.
That's right.
Sure.
Yeah, they've got marketing going on and they've got a sound in their mind about what's happening. And also when you do personnel changes, sometimes you have to do repertoire changes because that new person might not be able to get on board just as quick. So presenting organizations are like, what do you mean you're not playing blah, blah, blah piece? So I
love that too.
It was real touchy. That was real tough. And we put a lot of pressure on Mr. Dover because he jumped right in. Man, I'll never forget, he jumped in. His first concert was with Philadelphia Chamber Music Society. It's just like, what?
There you go. Let's see what you're made of, kid.
It's just like, I'm really sorry, dude. But,
you sound sorry, man. You sound really sorry.
Well, I wouldn't be laughing if the guy wasn't just a mofo on the clarinet. He's just so damn good. So he just, he focused in and he did what he had to do, and it was fantastic. But yeah, I mean, it's asking a lot of a new musician to come into an ensemble like ours, where I'd say 50 to 60% of the literature is either new in the sense that it's commission work, or new because it's stuff that the in-house composers have written. So it's not even, it's just completely foreign. There's no way to even, sort of practice for that, So he had a lot on his plate. But that's the kind of stuff that's made us sustainable over the years, because it's a lot of fresh stuff. And Mark was game for it. And I think that's pretty much really sort of the underlying reason why he was the chosen clarinetist, because he's got that wide open mind about whatever you got, bring it on. I'm ready for it, And that's what we're about. So, yeah.
Are you guys recording a lot anymore?
Yeah, we just finished a CD a week ago.
What's on it? What's the rep?
Nielsen.
couple of canonic pieces. We did the Villa Lobos Wind Quintet that we've been wanting to. It's just this wild piece that wasn't even written for French horn. It was written for English horn. It's got this triple high whatever notes, Z's I call them. And, it's just one of those pieces where, all right, if I got to do it, I got to do it. But I wrote something. Valerie wrote something. I did an arrangement of a piece by this violinist and oud player, Simone Shaheen. I did an arrangement of a work that he did, and there's this huge arrangement of all things Scheherazade.
Huh.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah. See, I like the voice, Lance. That was great. Like that low voice. You're like,
Okay.
He's trying to impress you. That's the voice he uses on the guests where he's trying to impress. Hi.
Yeah. You guys should really check this cat out, man. This guy's name is Jonathan Russell. He's a clarinetist and composer arranger. He did an arrangement about 5 years ago for us of The Rite of Spring.
Oh, I remember that.
Killing. Like,
right.
It's just ridiculous. We recorded it. It's like crazy, crazy hot. And so we decided to go at him again, and he had this wild idea about Scheherazade, and we're like, okay. And he put it on, and it's killing. It's ridiculous.
That's awesome.
So we just recorded that, and it's almost like 25, 30 minutes of music. So it made up half of the CD already by itself,
Hey,
now, are you selling recordings other than, my assumption is that you're basically only selling them when you're on the road, and that there's not a lot of, there's no sales anywhere if you're not on the road at this point.
Yeah, in all honesty, I don't know what our labels, how it's doing. I do know we've been able over the years, we have 7 CDs out. I think 5 of them are with E1 Music, and they flipped a complete bill for doing these recordings. And we don't see money from them until they've recouped. Right. And I know we do get these, we get small checks. They're not big at all, but at this point we're getting small checks from them. So they've been able to at least recoup their money. But I will tell you, hands down, we sell more CDs on the road than they do. That's for sure. That's for sure.
So do they give you like a buyback rate so you can make some money doing that, or how's that work?
We go straight to the distributor.
I see.
Because it's even cheaper that way. And we buy them in huge bulk, huge. So, and I'm the curator. So I've got this one closet here in my place. It's just like boxes and boxes of CDs, and I take out a box every time we go on the road. But the CD sales are, you make the spiel. I have a whole spiel at the end of the concert where I get up and I'm funny, and then one of the lines I say is, we have CDs for sale, and I'll be in the back. Catch me in 5 minutes after the concert's over. Because, at this point, I consider CDs like business cards.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
It's a way for people to, it's for you to be relevant in their minds all the time. If they've got it lying around or in their car or something like that, or they've downloaded it to their iPod or something like iPad, or so that you just stay relevant. That's all.
I was wondering, could you talk about your we've alluded to it, but did you get a composition degree, or how long have you been writing music, and what other music do you write beyond the stuff for Amani Wins? What's your composition career been like?
Well, I don't have a degree. I never studied formally. I was doing some arranging and some real small original stuff for this brass group that I used to play in. Had a weird name. It's called No Nanette. Years ago.
How many people in your nonette?
That's a touchy subject for a Red Sox fan. That's a very famous musical because it's been debunked, but that's so that was allegedly why the Red Sox sold Babe Ruth to the Yankees, was to fund that. It turns out that's not true, but yeah, thanks, man. I hadn't thought about the fact that the Red Sox have completely crapped the bed in the first 2 games against Cleveland, and that I went to bed pissed off, even though I went to bed at 2 a.m. and the game ended at 7. But so the rest of the interview is going to be a little angry. But anyway, I digress. Continue.
I didn't mean to go there. But I will say this. The guy who started the group is this rabid Yankees fan.
Awesome.
Rabid Yankees fan. And I'm sure that's where the name sort of got
for sure.
Got it. But in any case, I do some writing for them. It was an all jazz and funk band with just tuba and percussion, no piano or bass or anything like that.
Nice.
And when I joined the quintet, one of the first things I said to them is, if we're going to play Hindemith and Rika for the rest of our lives, I just can't do this. It's not going to be good for me. And so, I told them I would want to bring some original thought into the ensemble.
For the record, we asked a representative from the Rika estate if they wanted to be on the podcast, and they declined our interview request.
Oh, hey man, if Rika could get residuals, though, dude,
right.
he'd be balling right now. But I started, right away doing some original stuff and so forth. But I think what has happened is, just by pure association, the group got well known. Folks started recognizing that I can write a little bit. Small commissions started coming, like 12, 15 years ago. Then, I had this, I'll never remember this, never forget this conversation I had with a former manager of ours, as he was trying to get some commissioning fee for a piece that I was writing for the group. And it wasn't really happening because, I wasn't well known enough. And he said, just write damn good music. He says, eventually the commissions will come. If you write good music, the commissions and the fees will come better. So I just started, pouring my heart into it, reading textbooks, getting opinions, sending my scores to colleagues that I respected, and just doing my homework. And, at this point, I have to say about a third of my income is from commissions.
Wow.
Wow, that's awesome.
It's crazy. It's nuts. I spend a lot of time writing now. And, I have had to make it into a business, literally turn it into a business. And I've got, a tax ID number and, the whole thing.
Oh, you fancy.
Wow.
Yeah, getting kind of fancy,
What are you working on right now? What commissions do you have on the way?
I've got like 4 commissions going, but what would be interesting to you guys is this brass piece I'm writing. You guys know David Chamberlain? Trombone player, trombone tuba.
The name sounds familiar.
He has a group. He has 2 groups. One is called Band of Bones,
Mm-hmm.
and the other one is called Hora Decima.
Hmm.
They're based here in New York, and I want to say it's a 12-piece brass choir, and he asked me to write something for them, and sort of just gave me carte blanche. Said, just do do your thing. And so I'm going to write a brass ensemble piece for them. But recent pieces were this violin sonata that was just premiered in May at Philadelphia Chamber Music Society. A horn trio piece, horn, violin, piano. You guys know Dan Graboy, horn player. We just finished recording it.
We don't know anybody. We know you.
Yeah. Really, honestly, who else do you need?
We know you and JD. That's about it. Once I met you two, I decided I didn't need to know anymore.
Is the man. Oh, man.
And
wow.
Chris. JD, Chris, you. That's about it.
Absolutely.
Yep.
Chris is doing these ridiculous videos.
How cool are those things? They're awesome.
I'm starting to think that maybe they're like fake, man. Nobody can play that well. That's impossible.
They're awesome. The writing, the creativity, the playing is like the whole thing is awesome. Yeah, I love it. Yeah, it's really, really cool stuff. So
I share the ball with my students. I'm like, you hear? This is what's possible.
I get annoyed Yeah, right. I get annoyed when my friends do things that are that cool. So because then I have to say nice things about them on a podcast. So speaking of Chris, we have collaborated. I say we. I'm gonna say we about Boston Brass in like 2040. Right. Yeah, there'll be like eight tuba players removed from me, and I'll be like, we? No, not really. Boston Brass and Amani Winds have collaborated a number of times, and you wrote a bunch of the music. And so, can you kind of talk about what that process was like of combining brass quintet, woodwind quintet, and percussion?
I mean, it's the ultimate. To me, that project, that Porgy and Bess project, and the Sketches of Spain stuff we did, that to me was the absolute ultimate. I mean, you had two ensembles at the top of their game, both with sensibility to classical and jazz stylings. Again, you're talking about chamber music audiences that just weren't used to seeing that on a chamber music stage. It's just not expected. So just purely from that energy in the room when you see folks like experiencing this and not being able to believe that, this flute player is going to, or bassoon player is going to get up and play and blow over changes, and then the principal trumpet is going to do, and then the tuba is going to break out and do this. I mean, it's just, are you kidding? Are you kidding? So that was just phenomenal. And, it's one of those projects, and in all honesty, that was one of the projects when I was talking to you about our management trying to get commissioning fees for the writing that we were doing. That was one of the projects where, our management said, just do good work, do the best damn arranging that you can do, and worry about fees later. Just make the band sound as good as it could sound. And you guys are killing it, so it wasn't really much to do. Just stay out of the way, basically. Like, here is note, play note.
I don't know if we were killing it. We were definitely knocking it over and kicking it a couple times.
But man, am I good at making it look like I was asked to knock it over and kick it. That's my specialty. I'd be like, all right, what else?
That's really something that should happen, I think, more often in terms of collaborations. There aren't many pieces out there. There are some, but not many for combined ensembles like that. But the sound is glorious. It's just so
I thought so too.
Balanced,
and the different tone, the different combinations for colors and things. It was it was great. The stuff that you guys wrote for Monica and I, like just tuba, bassoon. It's like Yeah, about 30 seconds into the first rehearsal, I was like, you know what? If I ever play bassoon, I will attempt to play it exactly like she does. And it's just the sound, and then you got like tuba and clarinet, and then you got like two trumpets and oboe, and I mean just like the number of colors was just yeah, it was great. Well, and that's not just the instrumentation, the writing. I mean, I thought that that you guys that did the writing, it was just those were some of my most fun gigs with Boston Brass.
Yeah. I it's too bad that it didn't have a longer life, but
So too.
and we're talking about it really comes down to economics, and
Yeah, expensive.
there are organizations that can flip that bill, you know.
Yeah, I feel like we just sort of barely scratched the surface of what could have happened.
Yep.
Absolutely.
Well, if Lance and I are ever in a full-time traveling brass quintet again, we'll call you. Lance, you want to start another one?
I'll get back to you on that.
Okay, good.
Man, I'll tell you, man, it's I have vowed that this is it. If something happens and I'm not playing in this quintet, I mean, it probably won't happen because I'm too old and fat to get in and do anything new. But if something ever happens and I'm not playing, I will never, ever start a new group. It's just too much. It's wow. It's so much.
Yeah.
It's so much to get to where you want to be. That's what I mean. It's
Yes.
The honeymoon period is fantastic, but it's to get where you want to be and maintain that takes so much effort that I think in my elder years, I don't know if I would have the 7 to 9 years of patience to build another one.
Well, let's stay with that. If you were to start one now, let's say, or you were able to advise yourself, how would you do it differently than you did? Or starting today with the advantages of 2016 over 97, what would you do differently, if anything?
It's funny you said that because I just had this conversation with a very good friend of mine who wants to start this. He just wants to start a new group. He asked me if I would start a new ensemble with him, and I'm fine to play. I don't know if I have the time really, and definitely the leftover energy to start it and really like do all the work that takes to build an ensemble. But the first thing I would take advantage of, I said, was social media. It did not exist in '97 when we started. There was no such thing as putting up a Facebook post. But I would say, first of all, you just gotta make yourself present in the canon. You gotta let people know that you're out there, and even if you're not giving concerts. I said we just film every rehearsal, film the outtakes of rehearsals, film walking up to the rehearsal, and just do fun cutouts and just do social media, just blast, just little 15-second, 30-second clips, build a website and just like say, this is who we are, killing little cut takeouts of clips of the music that you're doing that are really, really tight, and just get people going, who the heck is that? Like, make it a point for people to want to know or see the next thing. You build that, slowly, and then maybe, 6 months down the road, announce that you're doing your first big show somewhere,
Right.
But that would be I would start with social media.
Good answer.
Yep.
Sounds like you should start another band, man.
I'm not doing.
You got the name already. Residual Energy.
Yeah. Residual Energy.
We stood on street corners with printed out flyers from our own home printers and computers in 1998 for our first concert at this little church, and handing them out like 2 and 3 days before the concert, like, please come to our show, please come to our show.
That's the hustle.
We had 7 people at the show.
You gotta. That's great though. That's the hustle. Yeah, I mean, what's a lot easier is to play the crap out of the horn and go to fancy music schools and to put something together and then to do nothing and have 5 people at the show, and then afterwards instead of 7, and then just complain about it. That's easier for all of us to do. It's like, and to not just try and get 9 people to the next one, and 14 to the one after that, and then maybe it jumps to 40, and then maybe it goes back to 25. I mean, but it's.
Good point.
If you want to do what Amani Wins is doing, if you want to do what Boston Brass is still doing, I mean, you got to be in. It's got to be a long game kind of a thing. You can't be judging your success or your long-term prospects after 2 months because it's just way too small of a sample size. So, speaking of a small sample size, I have no idea what that means. Well, I wanted to give you an opportunity to talk about our dear friend Jens Lindemann and, of course, the chop problems that he's been going through. So, do you know Jens?
I do. Yeah, he's a dear friend. In fact, Jens was over about a month ago. We had a few beers at a local pub here in downtown Cliffside Park, New Jersey. It's a little unknown town, but it's got great IPA bars, and Jens had a coffee. Really hold alcohol very well, and I'm telling him that the caffeine is what's been actually affecting his chops. The swell that happens purely right after he has like a double espresso. I mean, I was able to show him this, and I think if he were to curtail. Maybe if he got it down to like 3 shots of espresso a day, they wouldn't blow up so fat like an elephant. So, if you just maybe emphasize this to him the next time you talk to him, cut down on the caffeine, dude. It's flapjacking your chops.
It's flapjacking? What did you is that a term that you learned at the Manhattan School or at SUNY Stony Brook, or is that just like the University of Jeff Scott?
That's awesome. Just a small piece of advice, that's all.
Wow. Too much coffee is flapjacking your chops. What do we do with that, Lance?
That's a good question. My favorite part is actually when we were prepping Jeff, and we said, "Do you know Jens?" And he goes, "Yeah, the trombone player." Like, oh man, that's way better than I didn't think you could beat it. But flapjack and your chops actually is that's so good.
That is good. See, Lance, I told you Jeff would make a good guest.
Hey, what websites? What can we promote for you? What website should we throw in the notes?
Well, definitely MoneyWins.com.
Hmm?
That's where that's where by Jeff Scott.
Okay.
Okay, that was pretty funny.
On old social media stuff.
The call has been pretty good. Skype has been pretty good, and yet, as soon as Lance said, "What can we plug for you?" you started breaking up. So I think that Microsoft is pissed at your flapjacking comment. I think so. That was yeah, absolutely. So that's karma there, buddy. For making fun of poor Jens in this time of need. They will be in the show notes, but that was AmaniWins.com and JeffScott.com.
Music by Jeff Scott.
Like I said, musicbyjeffscott.com. So, cool. Well, is there anything I'm forgetting, Lance?
I hope so.
I think, Matt, you should hear Jeff Scott after 3 cups of coffee. It's crazy. Yeah,
that's right.
Yeah,
the caffeine, man. I'm trying to tell you.
Yeah, man. Well, thank you so much for waking up early with us on a Saturday morning, and and we'll hopefully talk to you again, and hopefully I can speak for Lance too. Hopefully we'll play with you again sometime soon because that was
so.
That was awesome.
Brothers, man, that was fantastic. It would be nice.
Would be nice. Amen to that.
Thanks for having me, guys.
And Lance, thank you for being such an incredible co-host.
It's the least I could do.
Really, I checked.
It really is.
And that will do it for another episode of The Brass Junkies. You've been listening to The Brass Junkies on the Pedal Note Media Podcast Network. If you would like to help support the podcast in order to make more episodes like this one possible, please visit pedalnotemedia.com/donate for more details. Also, be sure to check out our latest recording, The Brass Recording Project, at brassrecordingproject.com. The Brass Junkies is produced by Austin Boyer and Buddy Deschler of the Fredericksburg Brass Institute. Executive producers are Andrew Hitz and Lance LaDuke. This has been a presentation of the Pedal Note Media Podcast Network.